Hey runners, in this video, I'm going to talk you through the details you need to know to safely transition from a heel strike to a forefoot strike in running. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kevin Vandi, physical therapist and running specialist with Competitive Edge Physical Therapy. My team and I are on a mission to reduce running injuries worldwide. 80% of runners get injured every year, and I don't want that to be you, so thanks for tuning in. So, forefoot strike running, it's all the buzz, all the rage. Once the book Born to Run came out, there was a big push towards minimalist shoes with reduced cushioning underneath the foot, and a push for everyone to transition from a heel strike to a forefoot strike. In fact, it's one of the hottest debates in the running community. Which one's best? Should you run on your heel? Should you run on your forefoot? It's talked about everywhere, and it can get very heated. And I'm not going to get into the debate in this video. What I am going to describe is if you want to transition, if you want to go from a heel strike to a forefoot stride, I'm going to give you the best tips and ways to do that safely. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. I'm just helping you do so and avoiding injury and telling you the common mistakes I've seen in the runners I've worked with that have tried to make the switch. So, what's all the rage? Why are people wanting to run on their forefoot? Great question. It's been found in research that transitioning to a forefoot running stride, meaning you're landing on the ball part of your foot, the part of your foot close to your toes, not on your toes, but on the forefoot. It's been found that when runners make the transition from landing on their heel to landing on their forefoot, it reduces loading at the knee joint. Now, since the majority of running injuries happen at the knee, sounds like a great transition. Sounds like everybody should do it. But there's a catch. You see, when you run, force is applied to the body. You are literally jumping in the air and landing on one foot. But when you land, those landing forces can be up to 2 times or more of your body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, every time you step, it's 300 plus pounds. That's a lot of force. And a lot of times that force goes into the knee, can cause things like arthritis, meniscus injuries, can cause runner's knee, IT band syndrome. And so because a lot of injuries happen at the knee, we began to think, well, let's transition to the forefoot. Well, guess what? That force has to go somewhere. And in this case, when you transition to your forefoot, it goes to your calf, the muscle in the lower part of your leg. It goes to your Achilles tendon, and it goes to the bones and muscles of your foot. So it just transfers where the load is being applied. So the load being applied at the knee, it's now applied in a different area. So it saves the knee, but the thing is your foot and Achilles and calf have to be ready for that switch. Also, research has shown that those that transition to a forefoot run stride have decreased landing forces, meaning every time you land, you're hitting the ground less hard when you run on your forefoot, when you do it well, than when you land on your heel. Also sounds like great news. In addition to reducing landing forces and taking pressure off your knee, there's been evolutionary research that shows that humans are designed to run long distance. And before we had Nike and Reebok and Asics and all the great shoe companies that put a nice cushioned heel into a shoe, that our ancestors used to run on their forefoot. In fact, when you take shoes off of runners and you have them run barefoot, nearly everybody transitions to running forefoot because there's no longer any cushioning underneath the heel. So there's plenty of people who believe that if that's the natural way to run, we should be running that way. So it may be that running on your forefoot is even the way we were designed to run. Again, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying it may be the way we originally as humans learned to run long distance. So as you can see, there's a lot of potential benefits from transitioning to your forefoot. But let's look at what happens when you do so. When you transition to your forefoot, you increase the load on your calf, on your Achilles, on your foot bones, and foot muscles. For a lot of us, we're not ready for that transition. In fact, a lot of us can't do 25 calf raises, which is the standard test to determine if the calf is strong enough to run. Many runners can't do that. So when they transition, the calf isn't ready for that load, and that can present a problem. In fact, that is the #1 issue I see with transitioning to your forefoot. You do it too fast without enough preparation. So if you do want to do it, this is the part of the video you're really going to want to listen to, because it's going to make the difference between transitioning safely and transitioning with potential injury. If you decide you want to run forefoot and you immediately go out and transition every run to your forefoot, you're going to overload those tissues I just mentioned, calf, Achilles, and foot. And because it's not strong enough, and because it hasn't handled the load enough, you are going to increase your risk of things like Achilles tendonitis, calf strains, plantar fasciitis, and you may even increase the strain on the foot bones, they're called metatarsals, and even potentially for stress fractures. In fact, they found that a lot of people that made a quick transition without enough transition time did in fact sustain bone stress injuries and overuse injuries. So again, force has to go somewhere. We just have to make sure it's applied the right way. So how do you do it? How do you make a safe transition? Most research suggests that you should wait and practice running on your forefoot for at least 12 weeks, 3 months. And that seems like a long time. But what you have to remember is as you start to transition, your calf and your foot muscles are going to start to adapt. They're going to respond to the increased load. In fact, they even found that if you can wait 6 months and make a longer transition, your risk of major injury and your risk of bone and muscular injury goes down significantly. So that might not be what you wanted to hear, however, it is in line with keeping you safe when you make the transition. So what are the mechanics of making that transition? Number one, research suggests that you do a walk to run progression. And in that walk, you may start with walking around your house barefoot, walking around the track, your local track, a softer surface with minimalist shoes that have very little cushioning underneath the heel. That's a great way to prepare the cartilage and bones of your foot for the increased loading. You'll feel it. If you start to walk around your house without shoes on, your foot's going to hurt a little bit. The bones themselves aren't ready, so you've got to prepare them. You can find minimalist shoes from multiple companies, but that would be a place to start just to get your feet used to not having shoes on. In addition, you want to walk with those shoes before you run with those shoes. Going right into running is too aggressive a transition, not enough time for the muscles and bones to respond. So just start walking, start with maybe a quarter mile, go to a half, a full, a couple miles. Once you can get up to that 2 to 3 mile range, then you can start to add in periods of running. Might be 10 to 30 seconds at a time to ease the transition. The next thing you want to focus on is doing strides on the track. You may see them as butt kickers, you may see them as high knees, increasing your cadence on the track. That's a great place to start practicing either running barefoot on grass or really soft surface. Of course, making sure it's safe, there's no glass, there's no sharp objects, or using minimalist shoes to do so. Doing strides prepares you to adapt the running form. Again, you're not used to it. 90% of runners run on their heel. So you want to be ready for that transition by practicing the running form first, instead of going out a mile or two in minimalist shoes and then having to walk home in pain. You don't want to do that. So start with strides on the track, practicing landing on your forefoot. You also have to prepare your calf for the transition. This can start with double leg calf raises with just your body weight, work up to doing 25 to 30 repetitions. Do that with a single leg, also working up to 25 repetitions. It's going to be hard at first, but practice. And then you want to start to add weight, either using a backpack or a weighted calf machine at the gym. As you add weight, add 5 pounds at a time. That way it's a gradual transition, and your calf and Achilles will begin to get stronger, have more resilience, have more strength to be able to handle the demands of running. That coincide with your walking and running will help the transition. Again, strengthening takes about 6 weeks to see benefit, to see true fiber size changes in the muscle. So you may need multiple sets of strengthening. Might be 3 to 4 months to really get your calf into place where it can handle a 3 to 5 mile run, let's say. The other thing you want to practice is your form. transitioning your strike from a heel strike to a forefoot strike is one of the most aggressive things you can change in your run, and it's gonna feel super weird at first. So practicing on a treadmill or a place where you're running around a track where you can keep it short and you can get feedback either through a mirror or have someone videotape you can make a big difference to make sure you are not aggressively landing on your forefoot. Again, you don't want to be on your toes. You want to basically scrape your forefoot along the ground like you're sliding your foot on the ground. You don't want to stab the ground with your foot. That's another common mistake I see forefoot runners make. So those are the tips I can provide you that if you want to make the transition, if you feel like it's the right move for you, you want to make sure you give yourself time, 3 to 6 months, to be able to make the transition. You want to do calf strengthening drills, foot strengthening drills with weight that is progressive as you load a backpack or a weight machine to increase the amount of load tolerance of your calf, Achilles, and foot muscles. You want to wear minimalist shoes or no shoes around the house and minimalist shoes out and about to prepare your foot bones for loading. That is a great initial step in the process. And you want to do a walk to run transition so that you don't go right into running. You want to avoid an aggressive forefoot strike stabbing at the ground. Instead, you want to just graze the ground with your forefoot. We always say that if you're a heel strike runner, just be less of one. If you're an aggressive forefoot striker, just be less of one. Try to move towards the middle as much as possible, but just stay on your forefoot if that is what you're looking for. Again, it can make a big difference at reducing knee load, at reducing joint load of your lower body, but it does come at the penalty of increasing load on your Achilles, calf, and foot, and you want to be careful to avoid those injuries. All right, those are my tips. I hope they helped. Please drop a comment below to let me know if this video was helpful and these tips allowed you to have some assurance and clarity that you are progressing to a forefoot running stride with safety. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching the video. Until next time, guys, train smarter and perform better.